Respect it. If someone walked away from you and you were sitting there wondering how to make them come back, listen to me carefully. You do not make somebody beg for you by chasing them. You make them feel your absence by becoming the person they can no longer reach, control, or take for granted. And sometimes the hardest thing you will ever do is stop fighting for someone who already stopped fighting for you. There is a moment after a breakup that nobody prepares you for. It is not the moment they say goodbye. It is the moment after they leave, when the room becomes quiet, your phone stops lighting up, and suddenly every memory becomes louder than the silence around you. You look at your phone, nothing. You check again, still nothing. And your heart starts asking questions your mind cannot answer. Did they ever love me? Do they miss me? Will they come back? Are they thinking about me? Should I text them? Should I apologize? Should I explain myself one more time? And sometimes, when you are hurting badly enough, you start believing that if you can just say the perfect words, send the perfect message, disappear for the perfect number of days, or make them jealous with the perfect picture, you can somehow force their heart to return. But listen to me. Love does not come back because you found the perfect trick. Love comes back when someone finally understands the value of what they lost. And there is a difference. Because if you spend your days trying to manipulate somebody into missing you, you are still giving them control over your emotions. But when you begin rebuilding yourself, something changes. You stop asking, how do I make them come back? And you start asking, why did I ever abandon myself just to keep them? That question can change your entire life. Maybe you gave too much. Maybe you forgave too quickly. Maybe you kept explaining your feelings to somebody who had already decided not to understand them. Maybe you accepted breadcrumbs because you were afraid that asking for the whole loaf would make them leave. Maybe you kept answering every message immediately. Maybe you were always available. Maybe you made their happiness your responsibility while they slowly forgot that your heart needed care too. And when they finally walked away, you felt like they took a piece of you with them. But they didn't. They took a relationship. They took memories. They took routines. They may have taken a chapter, but they did not take your worth. You still have that. And the first step toward post-breakup attraction is understanding that your worth cannot depend on whether another person recognizes it. There is a woman listening to this right now who has cried in silence because she doesn't want anybody to know how badly she is hurting. She smiles around her family. She answers people with, "I'm fine." She goes through her day pretending everything is normal. But when nighttime comes, she remembers his voice. She remembers the way he looked at her. She remembers the promises. She remembers the plans, and then she remembers that he is no longer there. And there is a man listening right now who is doing the same thing. He may never admit it. He may act strong. He may stay busy. He may laugh with his friends. He may tell everybody he is over it. But sometimes the strongest looking person in the room is the one falling apart when nobody is watching. Heartbreak doesn't ask whether you're a man or a woman. It hurts everybody. And sometimes the person who leaves is hurting too. But here's where you have to become wise. You cannot build your future around guessing what another person feels. You cannot spend every morning checking whether they viewed your story. You cannot spend every night wondering why they haven't texted. You cannot measure your worth by their silence, because the more desperately you chase an answer from them, the further you move away from the answer you actually need. The answer is you. You need to come back to yourself, and this is where the real transformation begins. Stop contacting them just to relieve your anxiety. Stop sending messages because you missed them for 5 minutes. Stop creating emergencies just so you have an excuse to talk. Stop asking mutual friends what they are doing. Stop watching their social media like it is a stock market that determines whether your life is going up or down. Because every time you do that, you teach your heart that their behavior controls your peace, and your peace is too expensive to give away like that. If they left, let them experience the distance, not as punishment, not as revenge, not as a game, but as reality. Sometimes a person cannot understand your value while they have unlimited access to you. They only understand what you meant when your presence is no longer guaranteed. Think about it. When something is always available, people can become careless with it. But when access disappears, reflection begins. The conversations they ignored may start replaying in their mind. The kindness they took for granted may suddenly become unforgettable. The person they assumed would always answer may suddenly become silent. And that silence can create a question in their mind. What happened to her? What happened to him? Why aren't they reaching out anymore? But here's the important part. You cannot disappear while secretly waiting beside the phone, because that is not healing, that is surveillance. Real distance means you are genuinely rebuilding your life. You wake up, you take care of yourself, you work on your goals, you reconnect with people who love you, you become healthier, you become calmer, you start doing things you stopped doing because the relationship consumed your attention. You begin laughing again, and one day something strange happens. You realize you went several hours without thinking about them, then a whole day, then several days. And eventually you realize something even more powerful. You are not waiting anymore. That is when you become emotionally free. And ironically, that is also when attraction can return, because confidence is attractive. Peace is attractive. Self-respect is attractive. A person who knows they can love deeply without begging to be loved back is powerful. And you don't need to become cold. You don't need to pretend you don't care. You don't need to post pictures designed to make somebody jealous. You don't need another relationship to prove that you have moved on. You don't need revenge, you need growth. Because the goal is not to make them suffer. The goal is to make sure you never again suffer because you abandoned yourself. And if they come back, you should not immediately throw the door wide open. You listen, you observe. You ask yourself why they returned. Are they lonely? Are they bored? Did another relationship fail? Do they genuinely understand what they lost? Are they willing to change? Because somebody saying, I miss you, is not the same as somebody saying, I understand how I hurt you, and I am prepared to do better. Those are two completely different statements. Anybody can miss your presence. Not everybody is ready to respect your presence, and that distinction can save your heart. So if they come back, don't let your loneliness answer for you. Let your wisdom answer, because you are not trying to get the old relationship back. You are trying to discover whether something healthier can exist. And sometimes the most beautiful reunion is not when two people get back together. Sometimes the most beautiful reunion is when you finally reunite with yourself. The version of you that stopped laughing, the version of you that stopped dreaming, the version of you that stopped believing you were enough, bring that person back. Because before you ever ask somebody else to choose you again, you have to choose yourself. And once you do that, something inside you becomes different. You don't beg, you don't chase, you don't threaten, you don't manipulate, you don't compete. You simply become unavailable for disrespect. And when someone realizes they lost access to a person who loved them sincerely, supported them deeply, and still had enough self-respect to walk away when necessary, they may begin to feel the weight of that loss. But whether they come back or not, you win. Because you are no longer measuring victory by their return. You are measuring victory by your recovery. And that is where your real power begins. Now, let me tell you something about heartbreak that most people learn too late. The person who left you is not necessarily the person who gets to decide your future. Read that again in your heart. They may have walked away from the relationship, but they do not get to walk away with your confidence, your dreams, your dignity, and your ability to love. That belongs to you. And this is where the post-breakup transformation becomes real. Because when the relationship ends, your first instinct is usually to get them back. But your first responsibility should be to get yourself back. There is a difference. You see, When you are emotionally attached to somebody, you can slowly start making decisions based on their reactions. If they text, you're happy. If they don't text, you're miserable. If they like your picture, you feel hopeful. If they don't, you start wondering what went wrong. If they say they miss you, your entire mood changes. If they become distant, you start questioning your worth. That's not love anymore. That's emotional dependence. And emotional dependence can make a strong person behave like a desperate person. You start sending messages you promised yourself you wouldn't send. You start explaining things they didn't ask you to explain. You start apologizing for things that weren't entirely your fault. You start saying, I can change. You start saying, just give me another chance. And before you realize it, you're negotiating for a position in somebody's life that should have been given freely. Listen carefully. You should never have to convince someone that your presence has value. You can communicate. You can apologize when you are wrong. You can acknowledge your mistakes. You can fight for a relationship when both people are fighting. But when one person has already emotionally checked out, chasing them harder rarely creates the love you want. Sometimes it only creates more distance because attraction needs space, not manipulation, space. Think about a song. If you play the same song every second of the day, eventually you stop hearing it. But after silence, when that song suddenly comes on again, you notice every word. People can be like that. Your constant availability can become background noise. Your messages become expected. Your attention becomes normal. Your love becomes something they assume will always be there. And then you step back, not because you're trying to punish them, but because you finally understand that your attention is valuable. You stop over-explaining, you stop checking, you stop chasing, you stop asking, why aren't you choosing me? And you begin saying with your actions, I choose myself. That shift is powerful, but don't misunderstand me. Going silent does not mean becoming cruel. It doesn't mean blocking somebody just to see if they panic. It doesn't mean posting fake happiness. It doesn't mean pretending you never cared. Real strength is quieter than that. Real strength says, I care deeply. I love sincerely. I wanted this relationship to work, but I will not destroy myself trying to force something that requires two people. That's maturity. And maturity is attractive. Because when someone sees that you can love them without losing yourself, they understand that your love is a choice, not a weakness. Now imagine something. Imagine that weeks have passed. You haven't contacted them. You have stopped checking their pages. You've started working out again. You started sleeping better. You've started spending time with your friends. You've gone back to your goals. You are building something. Maybe you're starting a business. Maybe you're studying. Maybe you're improving your career. Maybe you're simply learning how to enjoy your own company again. And then one afternoon, your phone vibrates. You look down, it's their name. Your heart stops for a second, and suddenly every emotion you've been trying to manage comes rushing back. You want to respond immediately. You want to say, I've missed you so much. You want to ask where they've been. You want to know if they've been thinking about you. You want answers, but breathe. This is where emotional discipline matters. Don't let one message erase weeks of growth. One text doesn't prove transformation. One hey doesn't prove commitment. One I miss you doesn't prove that the relationship will be different this time. Look at consistency. Look at accountability. Look at actions. Anybody can return when they are lonely. Anybody can send a message when nostalgia hits. Anybody can say, I was thinking about you. But a person who truly wants you back will eventually demonstrate it through effort. They will make time. They will communicate. They will acknowledge what went wrong. They will stop repeating the behavior that caused the breakup. They won't simply ask for access to the old version of you. They will become worthy of the new version of you. And that's why you must grow during the separation, because if you remain exactly the same person who accepted the same disrespect, you may recreate the same relationship. A reunion without growth is simply a repeat. You don't need another chapter with the same ending. You need a different story. And maybe that story includes them. Maybe it doesn't. But either way, you are becoming stronger. Now let me speak directly to the person who is still crying. I know you're tired. I know there are moments when you feel like nobody understands. You look at old pictures and wonder how something that felt so beautiful became something that hurts so much. You remember the good days, the late night conversations, the little jokes, the plans, the way they held your hand, the way they looked at you. And your mind keeps saying, if only we could go back. But you cannot build a future by living inside yesterday. The person you miss may not even exist anymore. Maybe you're missing the version of them from the beginning. Maybe you're missing who you hoped they would become. Maybe you're missing the future you imagined. And sometimes we don't cry because we lost a person. We cry because we lost the future we thought we were going to have. That's why healing takes time. You are grieving a possibility. But don't let grief convince you that your life is over. It isn't. Your story is still being written. There will be mornings when you wake up and don't feel the pain as strongly. There will be moments when you hear their name and your heart doesn't collapse. There will be days when you realize you are laughing again. And one day you will remember this version of yourself and say, I survived that. Not because you became heartless, because you became whole. And if they ever come back, they will not be meeting the same person they left. They will meet someone who has learned boundaries, someone who understands their value, someone who knows that love should feel safe, not constantly uncertain, someone who can say, I want you, but I don't need you to survive. That sentence contains freedom, because there's a huge difference between wanting someone and needing them to validate your existence. Wanting them says, I would love to build something beautiful with you. Needing them says, without you, I don't know who I am. Never give another human being that much power. Love them, care about them, support them. But keep your identity, keep your purpose, keep your friendships, keep your dreams, keep your relationship with yourself. Because the healthiest love isn't two broken people desperately holding on to each other. It's two whole people choosing to walk together. And if somebody walks away from you, let them. Not because you don't care, because sometimes the only way somebody can understand what they had is by experiencing life without it. But here's the part nobody talks about. While you're hoping they miss you, they may be hoping you come back too. Both people can be silent. Both people can be hurt. Both people can be proud. Both people can be scared. And sometimes two people who still love each other are standing on opposite sides of the same silence. But don't break that silence just because you are uncomfortable. Let time reveal what emotion hides. If they genuinely want to rebuild something, they have the ability to reach out. And if they don't, their silence is also information. Painful information, but information. You don't have to chase clarity from someone who refuses to give it. You can create your own clarity. You can say, I love this person. I gave what I could. I learned what I needed to learn. And now I'm moving forward. That is not giving up. That's accepting reality. And sometimes acceptance is the beginning of peace. So keep walking, keep rebuilding, keep becoming. Let them wonder where you are. Let them wonder why you're no longer chasing. Let them wonder why the person who once couldn't imagine life without them now seems peaceful. But don't become peaceful for the purpose of making them wonder. Become peaceful because you deserve peace. That distinction changes everything. Because when your healing becomes genuine, you no longer need them to regret losing you. Their regret becomes irrelevant. Your growth becomes enough. And that's when you understand the deepest lesson of post-breakup attraction. You don't become unforgettable by begging someone to remember you. You become unforgettable by becoming the person who refuses to forget themselves. And when you finally understand that, your entire energy changes. Your shoulders become lighter. Your eyes become clearer. Your voice becomes calmer. You stop explaining your worth. You stop chasing validation. You stop asking for permission to be respected. And you start walking like someone who knows that losing a relationship is painful, but losing yourself would have been far more expensive. There comes a point in every heartbreak where you have to stop asking whether they are coming back and start asking who you are becoming while they are gone. Because time has a way of exposing what emotion tries to hide. In the beginning, you may think you need them to return so you can finally feel whole again. But as the days pass, something begins to happen. You begin discovering that the person you were desperately trying to get back was never the only person worth saving. You were worth saving too. And maybe you forgot that maybe you became so focused on being loved that you stopped asking whether you were being respected. Maybe you became so afraid of losing them that you accepted things you would once have told your best friend never to accept. Maybe you kept saying, that's just how they are. But deep inside, you knew you were hurting, you knew you were settling, you knew you were giving more than you were receiving. And sometimes heartbreak doesn't come to destroy you. Sometimes heartbreak comes to introduce you to the version of yourself you were too comfortable to become. Think about that. What if this breakup isn't the end of your love story? What if it is the end of the version of you that tolerated being treated like an option? What if this pain is forcing you to become stronger? What if the tears you're crying today are washing away the desperation you carried yesterday? There is something beautiful about a person who has been broken and still chooses to become kind. Not naive, kind. There is something powerful about someone who has been rejected and still refuses to believe they are unworthy. There is something unforgettable about a person who has been abandoned and still learns how to stand. That's the person you are becoming. And if they ever see you again, they should not see someone desperately waiting for their return. They should see someone who has grown, someone whose life continued, someone who learned, someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Now, I want you to understand something about attraction. Real attraction is not created by begging. It is not created by jealousy. It is not created by pretending to be happy while secretly crying every night. It is not created by posting pictures hoping they will react. Those things may get attention. But attention is not love. A notification is not commitment. Jealousy is not devotion. And missing someone is not the same as being ready to love them properly. Real attraction grows around qualities like confidence, emotional stability, mystery, independence, warmth, self-respect, and authenticity. And all of those qualities begin with one decision. Stop making your entire life about whether they come back. Start making your life about becoming someone you are proud to be. Go outside, take care of your body, clean your room, fix your sleep, work on your career, learn something, reconnect with your family, call the friends you disappeared from while you were in that relationship. Return to the hobbies you abandoned. Start writing again. Start praying again. If that gives you peace, start dreaming again, because your life existed before them and it will exist after them. You have to remember that there was a version of you before you knew their name. That person had dreams. That person had goals. That person laughed without waiting for someone's reply. That person had a future. Find that person again and then become even better. Not to make your ex jealous, not to make them regret leaving, not so they can look at you and say, wow, I made a mistake. Do it because you owe yourself the life you almost abandoned. And here's something that may surprise you. When you genuinely stop chasing someone, you may become more attractive to them. Why? Because your behavior communicates something different. It says, I love you, but I have boundaries. It says, I wanted this relationship, but I will not beg for it. It says, I am capable of missing you without losing myself. It says, you are important to me, but you are not the entire foundation of my identity. That kind of confidence can change how someone sees you. But remember, you're not performing confidence, you're building it. There is a difference. Fake confidence disappears the moment they send a message. Real confidence can receive the message and still think before responding. Fake confidence says, I don't care. Real confidence says, I care deeply, but I also care about myself. That's maturity. And when they reach out, don't rush to punish them. Don't respond with bitterness. Don't try to make them feel the exact pain they caused you. If they say hello, you can say hello. If they ask how you are, you can tell them you're doing well. You don't have to pour your entire heart onto the table within 5 minutes. Let conversation unfold naturally. Let their actions speak. Let them show you why they're back. Because if somebody genuinely wants another chance, they should be willing to earn your trust again. Trust isn't automatically restored because somebody misses you. Trust is rebuilt through consistency. And if they made mistakes, don't be afraid to acknowledge them. But don't carry all the blame just because you want them back. A healthy relationship requires two people who can look at themselves honestly. You can say, I made mistakes. And they should be able to say the same. You can say, I hurt you. And they should be able to say, I hurt you too. That's where healing becomes possible. Not in pretending nothing happened, not in rewriting history, not in acting like the breakup never existed, but in understanding it. Because sometimes the relationship can be rebuilt, and sometimes it cannot. Either way, you need to become strong enough to accept the truth. That's what real strength looks like. You can love somebody and still let them go. You can miss somebody and still maintain your boundaries. You can wish they would return and still continue your life. You can hope for reconciliation without putting your entire future on hold. And that is the balance. Because there is another danger after heartbreak. You can become so focused on getting them back that you forget to ask whether you actually want the relationship back. Now, maybe you don't miss the relationship. Maybe you miss the comfort. Maybe you miss having somebody to call. Maybe you miss the routine. Maybe you miss the memories. Maybe you miss being wanted. But that doesn't automatically mean you should go back. Ask yourself what you truly want. If they return tomorrow, would the same problems return? Would you trust them? Would they trust you? Would communication improve? Would boundaries be respected? Would both of you be willing to change? Because getting someone back is one thing. Building something better is another. And I want you to remember this: when the loneliness hits, loneliness is temporary, but returning to the wrong relationship can create a cycle that lasts for years. Don't trade your long-term peace for a few minutes of emotional comfort. You deserve more than that. And if you're listening right now with tears in your eyes, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not pathetic because you still miss them. You are not weak because you still love them. You are not foolish because you hoped it would work. You are human. You gave your heart to someone. Of course it hurts when the connection breaks, but don't turn your pain into a permanent identity. You are not the person who got left. You are the person who is learning how to stand again. There is a difference. And one day you may look back at this exact season of your life and realize that the breakup didn't destroy you. It redirected you. It taught you boundaries. It taught you patience. It taught you self-respect. It taught you what you will never tolerate again. It taught you that love should not require you to beg for basic consideration. And most importantly, it taught you that you can survive the loss of someone you once believed you couldn't live without. That realization changes the way you love forever, because now